Welcome to Asiatique, I'm Dr. Raymond. Earlier today, Huawei CFO Meng was released and was allowed to go back to China after being offered a deferred prosecution agreement by a federal judge from Brooklyn, New York. According to some reports, these charges are going to be deferred to next year, December, and if Meng is going to comply by those requirements, then the charges are going to be ultimately dropped. Now, a lot of people said this is actually an issue because of US sanctions against Iran. But what we see from Asia is a totally different picture. In this episode, we're going to look at Meng Wanzhou's case, but from a different perspective. So I said from a different perspective, didn't I? So what kind of a perspective are we going to take? Now, first of all, in order to understand the whole story, we have to look at, not focusing on the word Iran, not focusing on the word US sanctions. Now, if you focus on these things, you would actually see that as, a breach of whatever clause or whatever rules or whatever law that you might have when US sanction Iran. So if you think of it that way, then you will only see that as a criminal case. But if you take a step back and try to look at it from another angle, wait a minute, did you not notice one thing? Every time when they talk about the case, they call it the extradition case. We're talking about extradition here. Now, why is it extradition? Because, Meng was actually arrested in Canada. So she was, and what happened was the United States government was actually trying to extradite Meng to US so that she could be trialed in the US. Now for those of you who are interested in international news, try to link up some of the cases that we have. Now, back in 2010, there was this very controversial extradition case involving a French energy and transport group, Alstom. What happened was a French executive from Alstom was found to have bribed some Indonesian officials in order to secure contracts for boilers at a power plant. Now, what happened was that French executive was extradited to the States, and then he was he pleaded guilty, sentenced to something like 3 years in prison, and then pay a huge sum of penalty, which amounted to something like $770 million US. And of course, the biggest problem was not this. The biggest consequence out of this case, this extradition case, was not about just the case itself, not about that guy being fined or in prison or served the terms, but rather, in the end, what happened was this French company was forced to sell the boiler business to a US company, and that's GE, that's General Electric. Now, this piece of news basically swept all across Asia, and everybody was saying, oh, wait a minute, how come with a corruption case, with a bribery case, the whole thing ended up, if you're talking about, putting somebody behind bars or sort of asking for a penalty, that sounds quite reasonable. But forcing a business to sell part of his flagship product or sell actually 75% of the business to GE is something different. And it looks as if this is a whole setup to make Alstom just to give up their flagship product. Okay, this is one case. Another similar case involved a former Hong Kong Home Affairs minister. And what happened was he was found to be bribing, for a Chinese firm in Chad and Uganda, by offering $2.9 million US of bribes to the local officials. Of course, he was charged and he was brought to jail. He was locked up in jail for like 3 years before he was allowed to go. Now, of course, the rights then go to US businesses. A lot of people were already saying that the US government was trying to abuse their own criminal justice system in order to help them get businesses that they, otherwise couldn't. So if you look at it from that kind of perspective, the charging, the charges, the sentencing, the fees or the fine, and the aftermath of all these cases, very similar cases, all boils down to, business. So it's all about the money thing. Of course, you might say, hey, that's just one part of it. It's just the tip of the iceberg, a lot of these criminal cases. But the thing is, if you look just a little bit further away, you see what happens in this kind of a case actually happened before. But wait a minute, Did you not notice what I'm saying? I mean, I was telling you the story about the Huawei CFO as well as the former Home Affairs Minister, and they were both sort of like being charged. Whatever these charges might be, it ends up to be American interests. So you might say, so what if there is no American interest involved? Now, this is the interesting part of this. Why? In 2018, now there is a wanted list of fugitives in China as well. And there are 100 fugitives where these are people who have stolen money from the government or whatever. And this list is basically publicly known in China. Now, what happened was, in 2018, one of these fugitives arrived in Sweden. And just like the case of Meng and the French executive, this guy was arrested in Sweden. And what happened was, the US government actually wanted this guy to be extradited to the United States of America. So you might ask, what are the charges? The charges are interesting. First of all, laundering millions and of stolen money. Whose money? China's money. And then, where was the place where these things actually happened? In Hong Kong, in China, and in Singapore. So none in the United States of America. Now, what happened then was China was saying, how come you are extraditing people on my wanted list? This is number 3 on my most wanted list, and he actually committed a crime in China. I want him back. And what the United States government was doing was they pressured the Swedish government. In the very beginning, the Swedes were saying, oh, we're not going to be, involved between you guys, so I'll just let go this guy because anyway, he has committed nothing. He has not committed a single crime in Sweden. So why should I be, arresting him in the first place? Yes, the Chinese wanted this guy to be arrested, so we did it. The United States government wanted this guy to be arrested as well. So what am I going to do? I'll just arrest this guy. But now you guys are arguing, so I'm going to just let this guy go and come on, you guys come in, just arrest him yourself. I don't care. But then afterwards, what happened was the Swedes gave up. They sort of gave into the pressure and they say, okay, I will arrest that guy again. So this guy was actually arrested for a second time. And this time he was extradited to the United States of America. And a lot of people in China were saying, oh, wait a minute, why are you guys arresting a fugitive, a wanted person in China and then extraditing to the United States of America? And you're going to try him there? What exactly are you up to? Now, if you look at that, you realize it really isn't about criminal justice here. What it really is about arresting this guy so that we can actually get information from this former Chinese official. And they wanted this because there was this trade war going on between America and China. So everybody sees that the United States government was trying to exploit the criminal justice system in order to help them with gaining information, gaining business. Instead, it's not about justice. And it's anything but justice. So if that's the case, how do you think people in Asia are going to look at these acts from the US government? Now, if you still remember, I said in the very beginning when Meng was arrested, 2 other Canadian citizens were arrested as well, just a few days after her arrest. The 2 Michaels, Michael Korvik and Michael Spavor, one is a former diplomat. Korvik is the former Canadian diplomat, and Spavor was said to be an espionage and was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Now, the arrest of these 2 people made it clear that China was not doing anything to conceal any attempts that Meng and these 2 Michaels are in any way related. They're telling the world that, look, come on, they're related, okay? So the moment you arrest somebody like this without a valid reason, we're going to arrest somebody as well. Now, the thing is, if you've noticed, it's always about extradition. I said it's about extradition, right? What happened was the Chinese government was actually thinking, where can I extradite other people if I need to? What if the US government is going to do this again to other people, to other top executives, to other businessmen, to other officials, or even to fugitives, where these people are actually on the wanted list of China? So what could they do? So they came up with an idea. How about an extradition bill of ours? And where are we going to extradite anybody? Well, the nearest place would be the international city of Hong Kong. And that's why in early 2019, the chief executive of Hong Kong was trying to sort of push through in a very, very urgent way their version of the extradition bill. Now, I said it's urgent, so how urgent is that? Under normal circumstances, well, consultation would take at least 3 months. But in that case, it took only 20 days. So they were trying to push through the bill as quickly as possible. And of course, in Hong Kong, there are a lot of these political parties. Actually, this is, nothing like secret. This is no secret at all. It's actually public information, public secret, or I should say. Well, a lot of these political parties, or a number of these political parties, are actually backed by US money. And what they were doing was that they were telling everybody in Hong Kong that, hey, this extradition bill is not about extraditing anybody else but you guys back to China, you citizens of Hong Kong. Now, all of a sudden, people got outraged. They got enraged by this information. And they were misled, obviously, because they didn't actually see the big picture of the whole thing. And people took it to the streets. And if you still remember, and that's one of the main causes of the riots in Hong Kong back in 2019. So if you look at that, all of a sudden you realize, oh, so that's not about a call for democracy, isn't it? No, that's not. That's not about a call for, doing away a bad legislation. No, come on, it's not even for you guys. I mean, it's not even for the people of Hong Kong. It's actually for what? Extraditing necessary people, espionage, or anybody like that, just in case when there's another case, another extradition case like Meng or that former Home Affairs Minister. So what they were trying to do was they were trying to shut that back door and trying to seal. No, the Chinese government was trying to seal and shut that back door, that legal loophole in a sense, so that they can actually do something about it when it comes to some other top officials being arrested because of this and that. Try to imagine this. If this arrest of Meng was actually about Huawei, and let's say it's going to be like what happened with Alstom, then what the United States government would actually want to see ultimately is that Huawei is going to sell their business to some kind of American company, American business, right? But President Donald Trump has already banned Huawei from America, and also in a number of US allies as well, including Britain, including Sweden, etc., etc. So if you don't have those equipment in the United States of America, how could you spy? And now you're going to want that business because those equipments are in China. So who are you wanting to spy? The logic just doesn't compute. But if Huawei is not in America, is only in China or only in some of the other countries that Huawei does business with, then why is America wanting ownership of this business? Why is America wanting this? So the whole thing becomes a deadlock. Now, mind you, it all got started during the times of the former President Trump. So what happened is, if you sort of sit back again and look at the entire situation, you realize it's high time that somebody sets the right atmosphere for the two nations to actually sit down and discuss. And that's why, if you look at what Joe Biden is doing, is that he is trying to set the right atmosphere by releasing somebody who has already shown zero value to the United States government, and that is Meng Wanzhou. And this is why when Senator Marco Rubio questioned President Biden's ability to confront the threat posed by the tech giant and CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, I actually find it strange because what Biden was doing, or what President Biden was doing, was actually to set the right thing, was actually to undo some of the wrongdoings and try to make that atmosphere and trying to create that atmosphere for the possible meeting between the two leaders. So if you look at that from that kind of a perspective, it's really not about the charges, it's really not about the crime. It's actually about national or business interests. So, until then, ciao!
Before you leave, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with your friends. See you in the next episode!